Creation. In the beginning, there was only chaos, the gaping emptiness. Then either, all by themselves or out of the formless void, sprung forth three more primordial deities: Gaia, Earth; Tartarus, the underworld; and Eros, love. Once love was there, Gaia and Coeus, two female deities, were able to procreate and shape everything known and unknown in the universe. Coeus gave birth to Erebus, darkness, and Nyx, night. Erebus slept with his sister Nyx, and out of this union, Ather, the bright upper air, and Hemra, the day, emerged. Afterward, feared by everyone but her brother, Night fashioned a family of haunting forces all by herself. Among others, her children included the hateful Moros, Fate, the Black Cur, Doom, Thanatos, Death, Hypnis, Sleep, Oneiroi, Dreams, Geras, Old Age, Oasis, Pain, Nemesis, Revenge, Eris, Strife, Appet, Deceit, Fillets, Sexual Pleasure, Momos, Blame, and the Hesperides, the daughters of the evening. Meanwhile, Gaia gave birth to Uranus, the starry sky. Uranus became Gaia's husband, surrounding her from all sides. Together, they produced three sets of children: the three one-eyed Cyclops, the 300-handed Hecatonchyles, and the 12 Titans. However, Uranus was a cruel husband and an even crueler father. He hated his children and didn't want to allow them to see the light of day. So, he imprisoned them into the hidden places of the earth, represented as Gaia's womb. This angered Gaia, and she plotted with her sons against Uranus. She made a harp, a great adamant sickle, and tried to incite her children to attack Uranus. All were too afraid, except the youngest Titan, Cronus. Gaia and Cronus set up an ambush for Uranus. As he was preparing to lay with Gaia, Cronus castrated him with the sickle, throwing his severed genitals into the ocean. It is unclear as to what happened to Uranus afterward. He either died, withdrew from the earth, or exiled himself to Italy. From the blood that was spilled on the earth due to his castration, emerged the giants, the Melia, the ash tree nymphs, and the Erinyes, the Furies. From the sea foam that was produced when his genitals fell into the ocean, rose Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty. Cronus became the next ruler. He imprisoned the Cyclops and the Hecatonchyles in Tartarus and set the Dragoness camp to guard them. He married his sister, the Titaness Rhea, who bore him 5 children. However, Gaia and Uranus had both prophesied that Cronus would eventually be overthrown by one of his sons. So much like his father, Cronus maltreated his children, devouring each of them at the time of birth. Rhea was distressed by Cronus' treatment of her children and, just like Gaia before him, plotted against her husband. On the advice of her mother, when it was time to give birth to her 6th child, Rhea hid herself on Crete, leaving their newborn child to be raised by the nymphs of the island. To conceal her act, she wrapped a stone in swaddling clothes and passed it off as the supposed baby to Cronus, who, unaware of her intentions, swallowed it yet again. The child was Zeus, raised by the nymphs Odrastia and Ida, and the she-goat Amalthea. He quickly grew into a handsome youth in a cave on the Cretan Mount Ida. When the time came, he left Crete to ask his future wife, the Titaness Metis, wisdom for an advice on how to defeat Cronus. She answered by preparing a drink indistinguishable from Cronus' favorite wine, but designed to make him vomit for ages. Zeus disguised himself as the god's cupbearer and, after a while, successfully slipped Metis' drink to Cronus. The plan worked perfectly. Cronus started vomiting and spilled out all of Zeus' 5 siblings, but only after throwing up the stone, called omphalos, or the navel. The stone was later set up at Delphi by 2 eagles that Zeus sent to meet at the center of the world. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Rhea's children, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, recognized Zeus as their leader. However, Cronus was still in command and yet to be defeated. He was too old to protect himself from the attacks of his progeny, but he enlisted the help of the faithful Titans, who also feared the new generation of gods. This led to a decade-long war between the Titans and the Olympians, remembered by generations hence as the Titanomachy. Atlas became the Titans' leader and led his armies to many victories. At one point, it even seemed that Zeus would be defeated. However, at the advice of Rhea, he went to Tartarus and released the Cyclops and the Hecatonchires. In gratitude, the Cyclops provided Zeus with his signature thunderbolt. They also made a trident for Poseidon and a helmet of invisibility for Hades. The tables had turned. However, as so many times before, the final victory would not be the result of brute force, but it would happen due to a cunning little trick, possibly devised by Prometheus, who deserted from the Titans' army beforehand. Armed with boulders, Hecatonchires set an ambush for the Titans. At the right time, Zeus retreated his forces, drawing the Titans into the Hecatonchires' trap. The 100-handed ones started raining down hundreds of boulders, with such a fury that the Titans thought the mountains were falling down upon them. They ran away, and Zeus could finally consider himself the king of the universe. Zeus exiled the Titans, who had fought against him, into Tartarus. He made an exception with Atlas, though being the leader of the opposing force, he was punished to hold the universe on his shoulders. Zeus' power would be challenged on few occasions afterward. Just after the Titanomachy, his grandmother Rhea, outraged by the imprisonment of her children, issued forth one last child of her, the monstrous Typhon. He was so fearsome that most of the gods fled the second they saw him. However, Zeus didn't hesitate. He faced the monster, and using the power of his lightning bolts, he was able to defeat it. Typhon was subsequently buried under Mount Etna in Sicily. They say that you can still hear him growling and rumbling under the volcano, and that someday in the distant future, he will return to challenge Zeus once again. There's no better place to read about the creation than Hesiod's Theogony, a book whose title can be literally translated as the birth of the gods. The Titans, elder Greek gods, and first divine rulers. The mighty Titans were a powerful race that ruled the world before Olympians. In a time of the golden age of men, they were immortal giants of incredible strength and knowledge of old religion, rituals, and magic. They are also known as the elder gods, and their dwelling place was at Mount Othrys. In Greek culture, they were interpreted as personifications of the earth, Rhea, and the sky or heavens, Uranus. The first generation of Titans were descendants of Rhea and Uranus, who originally gave birth to the 12 Titans, 6 males and 6 females. The males were Coeus, Cronus, Crius, Hyperion, Iapetus and Oceanus, and females were Mnemosyne, Phoebe, Rhea, Thea, Themis and Tethys. They arose to power when Cronus, in a plot with his mother and his brothers, castrated his father Uranus and took the rulership of Cosmos from him. More details about this conflict can be found in the Genesis. During this reign, the Titans and other primeval gods decided to pass on the godly genes and gave birth to the second generation of Titans. Hyperion and Thea gave birth to Eos, Helios and Selene, while Coeus and Phoebe brought forth Leto and Asteria. Oceanus and Tethys gave birth to Oceanids and Ptolemoi, who are in general not referred to as Titans. However, an Oceanid, Clymene, a daughter of Oceanus and Tethys, helped Iapetus to continue the next generation and bore him Atlas, Prometheus, Epimetheus and Mnemosyne, Crius and his half-sister Rhea, a daughter of Rhea and Pontus, brought forth Astræus, Pallas and Perses, and, eventually, Cronus and Rhea gave birth to younger gods, Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, Hera, Hestia and Demeter, who rebelled against Cronus and his followers and later defeated them in a 10-year war, known as Titanomachy. They called themselves the Olympian gods, after Mount Olympus, which was their main dwelling place, and became the new rulers of the cosmos. The first generation of Titans. Coeus was a Titan god of intelligence and farsight, meaning that, due to his inquisitive mind and desire to learn, he gained knowledge and understanding, able to see beyond the obvious. He was also identified as a god of wisdom and heavenly oracles. Coeus was also known as the pillar of the North Pole from which constellations revolved and, therefore, controlled the axis between heaven and earth. Together with his other three brothers, Crius, Hyperion and Iapetus, they presided as the pillars holding heaven and earth apart. He was one of 6 sons of Uranus and Rhea, and is mentioned by Apollodorus as one of the 5 brothers, all but Oceanus, who participated in rebellion against Uranus and later attacked him. When they overcame him, the 4 brothers probably held him down, while Cronus castrated him. His Latin name was Polos or Polus, and according to Hyginus, the name Coeus was used for a giant instead of Titan. They are clearly 2 different characters mentioned by not only Hyginus, but also by Virgil, another Latin author. In the time of the Titanomachy, Coeus fought bravely with his brothers against Olympians, but was after defeated and imprisoned in Tartarus. Like the rest of his brothers, when in Tartarus, according to Valerius Flaccus, Coeus had escaped free of his adamantine bonds and in his madness wanted to escape from the underworld and reach the heavens, seeking revenge, but was in the end restrained by Cerberus, the 3-headed dog, which guarded Hades' gates and prevented anyone from leaving. However, according to Aeschylus' Lost Play, he was later released by Zeus from Tartarus with the rest of the Titans. Also, it is said by some researchers that Coeus then fled back to his North Pole and became known as the North Star. Coeus was also a god of heavenly oracles. He was believed to be able to hear prophetic voices of his father Uranus, just like Phoebe could hear prophetic voices of her mother Rhea. Together they had 2 daughters who inherited powers of their parents. Leto was a goddess of modesty and motherhood, and was associated with prophetic power of light and heaven, while Asteria was a goddess of oracles and prophecies. She was associated with prophetic power of night and the dead. Leto represented the light of day, while, in contrast, Asteria represented with the night time. These contrary qualities were also passed to their descendants. Apollo inherited the power of the light from his mother Leto, and Hecate inherited the power of the night from Asteria. Still, there is no source with clear statement of Coeus being prophetic except having a prophetic family. Being able to predict the future, in his case, might have come from his intelligence and divine knowledge that he was so eager to gain from his predecessors. Perhaps that is why he was also identified as the god of wisdom. Having knowledge is one thing, but being able to truly understand it and use it for predicting future natural occurrences and events is being wise. The Titans. Crius, god of heavenly constellations. Crius or Crios, the ram. Ares was a Titan god of heavenly constellations and was also known as a pillar of the South Pole. Crius, which means ram, was often referred to as the starting season of the Greek year, because his constellation was called Aries, which nowadays means the start of spring. Together with his other 3 brothers, Coeus, Hyperion and Iapetus, they presided as the pillars holding heaven and earth apart. He was one of 6 sons of Uranus and Rhea, and is mentioned by Apollodorus as one of the 5 brothers, all but Oceanus, who participated in the rebellion against Uranus. According to Pausanias, Crius was the father of Typhon, a dragon slain by Apollo, and was also closely related with the island of Euboea. The author even names 2 rivers after the Titan. During the time of the war, or Titanomachy, he was mentioned siding with the Titans against the younger Olympian gods. After the war, where the Titans had lost, Crius was along his brothers and many relatives imprisoned in Tartarus deep beneath the underworld. Although there is no clear statement made, he was supposed to be condemned to eternal punishment. However, according to Aeschylus' Lost Play, he was later released by Zeus from Tartarus with the rest of the Titans. In his time, he consorted with his half-sister Eurybia, a daughter of Rhea and Pontus. Together they had 3 children: Astraeus, Titan god of the stars and the art of astrology. He was also the god of the dusk and father of the 4 winds and the stars of the heavens by Eos, goddess of dawn. They also had children who are often associated with the time of twilight: Pallas, Titan god of warcraft, who was defeated during the Titanomachy by younger Olympian goddess Athena. He was the father of rivalry, victory, strength and power. Perses, Titan god of destruction. He was married to his cousin Asteria, with whom he fathered Hecate. There is little more written about Crius other than what we have covered here today, so please excuse the short video. And hopefully, there will be a bit more information on the rest of the Titans. Cronus, the god of time and ages. Cronus, Saturn, was the Titan god of time and ages, and was above all associated with the destructive force of time, which sooner or later consumes everything. He represented changing time, from his status of being the king of the Golden Age to his place of being imprisoned in Tartarus, and according to Hesiod's works, just days after being freed from Tartarus, was promoted by Zeus to become a king of islands of the blessed or Elysian fields somewhere in the underworld. Cronus was married to his sister Rhea, with whom they represented eternal flow, as they gave birth to a new generation of gods, known as the Olympian gods, who then took control of the world, just like they had done in the past. According to a fragment found in a collection of fragments from the Greek epic cycle, Cronus also had another descendant. It is said that he took the shape of a horse and impregnated Philyra, a daughter of Oceanus, who then gave birth to the famous centaur Chiron, becoming the ruler of the cosmos. According to most of the authors, Cronus was the youngest son of Uranus and Rhea and most egotistical of all. He envied his father for being the ruler of the universe, and because he was very much like his father, he soon got his opportunity to dethrone him. Uranus, because of fear that his children would overthrow him, made a mistake when he imprisoned Hecatonchias and Cyclops in Tartarus. He made Rhea angry, and Cronus saw his chance now that he wasn't alone anymore in plotting against him. At last, when the time was right and when Uranus came to lay with Rhea, they attacked him, and with the help of Crius, Coeus, Hyperion and Iapetus, who had probably held him still, Cronus castrated his father with a flint sickle, made by his mother Rhea. There is, however, alternative story presented by Diodorus Siculus, where Cronus is described as the eldest of the Titans and inherited kingship from his father. Fulgentius supports this claim in his mythologies, where it is said that it was Cronus who actually got castrated, not Uranus like most believed. His father gone, Cronus became what he always wanted, the ruler of cosmos. He was supported by most of his brothers and sisters, and the time couldn't have been better. Cronos' golden age was the golden age of men, a time of prosperity, peace and harmony between all living beings. It is said that in this time animals spoke with human voice, and no one would get ill, physically or mentally. They had lived in harmony and in abundance of everything, and even when they had died, death came peacefully during sleep. According to Diodorus Siculus, whose Cronus was a kind character, it is said that Cronus taught men to change their living from rude way to civilized life and introduced them sincerity of soul and justice, and therefore people became good-hearted and guileless. Now back to the mainstream story. All living beings were happy and pleased during this age, and even Cronus got himself a bride who appeared to be his sister Rhea. Together they made it possible for 6 children to be born, but before they were born, Uranus and Rhea have foretold a future which disturbed Cronus very much. And instead of living an abundant and peaceful life in harmony, things changed for the worst. When Rhea was pregnant, Cronus was prophesied of being dethroned by one of his sons. He had no plan of letting it happen, and he swallowed Poseidon, Hades, Hestia, Hera, and Demeter at the very moment they were born, not even checking whether it was a boy or a girl. Rhea became mad and bore Zeus in secrecy and gave her husband a stone in swaddling clothes to swallow. Cronus continued to believe that he was safe from the prophecy. Meanwhile, Zeus grew up and came to free his brothers and sisters. He mixed an elixir into his father's drink, who later vomited up all of his children. They then all supported Zeus and rebelled against their father and the Titans. Soon after the war broke out, Cronus acted recklessly with too much pride. He thought they would overcome the Olympians with ease because they were bigger and stronger. But he forgot his own arrogance towards others who joined Olympians in the war. Some of these were Hecate, Prometheus, Epimetheus, and Metis. But above all, Rhea imprisoning the Hecatonchires and Cyclops after decapitating his father was decisive, because when Zeus released them from Tartarus, the Olympians had gained the upper hand in war. In the end, after fighting each and every day for 10 years, the Olympians managed to defeat the Titans and cast them to Tartarus to be faced with eternal punishment. Over time, according to Aeschylus' lost play, Cronus was later released by Zeus from Tartarus with the rest of his accomplices. And according to Hesiod, Cronus was then appointed as the king of islands of the blessed, where he ruled the souls of departed heroes. What happened to living beings of the Golden Age during Titanomachy is unknown. It is only said that the earth covered over this race and that the spirits of these beings still exist. Perhaps they were destroyed in the war by battles of massive magnitude which were fought by the gods themselves. Hyperion, the god of light and sunlight. Hyperion was the Titan god of light or sunlight, and was associated with watching and observation from above. He was also known as a pillar of the east. Together with his other 3 brothers, Crius, Coeus and Iapetus, they presided as the pillars that hold heaven and earth apart. He was one of 6 sons of Uranus and Rhea, and is mentioned by Apollodorus as one of the 5 brothers who participated in rebellion against Uranus and later attacked him. While most of the authors are identifying Hyperion as a unique character, Homer is equating Helios and Hyperion as one and the same character, and it can be seen in both of his epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Due to his diligent observations, he was the first to understand the movements of the sun and the moon, as well as the other stars and seasons. He was believed to have ordered the cycles of the sun, the moon and the dawn. During his time, he married his sister Thea, with whom he had 3 children who presided over these cycles. Helios presided over the sun, Selene over the moon, and Eos presided over the dawn. Although there are notes of Hyperion participating in the Titanomachy, there is no reference of his role in the war. It is only known that he sided with his brothers and fellow Titans against the younger Olympians, and that he was in the end, after losing the war, imprisoned in Tartarus with his brothers and relatives. However, according to Aeschylus' lost play, he was later released by Zeus from Tartarus with the rest of the Titans. There is little more written about Hyperion other than what we have covered here today. And hopefully, there will be a bit more information on the rest of the Titans. Iapetus. Iapetus was a Titan son of Uranus and Rhea, and father of Atlas, Prometheus, Epimetheus and Mnemosyne. His name derives from the Greek word meaning to pierce, usually with a spear. Therefore, Iapetus may have been considered as the god of craftsmanship, although other sources cite him as the god of mortality. Iapetus was also considered the personification of one of the 4 pillars that hold the heavens and the earth apart, a role that he later bequeathed to his son, Atlas. He represented the pillar of the west, the other 3 being represented by his brothers Crius, Coeus and Hyperion. The 4 brothers actively played a role in the dethroning of their father Uranus, as they were all in the 4 corners of the earth. They held Uranus firmly in place, while their brother Cronus castrated him with a sickle, and became the ruler of the cosmos. Iapetus' sons were thought to have been the ancestors of humans, and that they had some detrimental qualities that not only led to their own demise, but they also passed them down to humans. So, although Prometheus was clever, he bequeathed scheming to mankind. Epimetheus, guileless as he was, passed down stupidity. Atlas, being powerful and patient, gave excessive daring, and finally, Mnemosyne, an arrogant personality, bequeathed violence to mankind, forever changing the golden age of man, and not for the better. During the Titanomachy, Iapetus fought alongside the Titans. The details of this great war are sparse, but some accounts believe that Zeus and Iapetus did actually fight one-on-one. Iapetus had a reputation for being one of the most destructive Titans. He was skilled at war, and had excellent fighting skills. But despite his best efforts, he did not succeed during his spar with Zeus. Some scholars believe that Zeus' victory over Iapetus was one of the earlier turning points for the Olympians. Iapetus was later imprisoned in Tartarus with the rest of his siblings by Zeus after their defeat during the Titanomachy War, but was later freed with the rest of the Titans, again by the order of Zeus. Iapetus might not have many memorable stories, and his sons passed on some not-so-great traits onto humans. However, his legacy is still crucial to Greek mythology. His lineage is responsible for humans' creation, and he participated in the much-loved succession myth. Iapetus' legacy doesn't stop with mythology. He also served as inspiration for discoveries in the world of astronomy. The most noteworthy is one moon of Saturn. Iapetus is the name of the 3rd largest moon. Giovanni Domenico Cassini initially discovered it in 1671, however. The name was a suggestion by John Herschel in 1847. Herschel advocated for using Titan names for many of the moons of Saturn. The Iapetus moon has been observed many times. The most noteworthy discoveries came from the Cassini missions and information gathered by Voyager 1 and 2, which study the outer solar system. Oceanus. The first son of Gaia and Uranus, Oceanus was a Titan who personified the great seas and oceans. He was often likened to a great river that spanned the entirety of the known world. With his sister and lover Tethys, Oceanus spawned the legions of sea nymphs known as the Oceanids. In fact, Oceanus and Tethys were so fertile that the overproduction of the aqueous elements of nature would cause floods. So, they divorced to stop this from happening. Though not as popular as the Olympian deities, Oceanus was still well known throughout ancient Greece. He was mentioned in the Homeric epics, though his exact personality remained obscure. The ancient Greeks viewed Oceanus as a kind and benevolent deity. He was generally represented as an older male with a flowing beard that symbolized his fatherly authority. The name Oceanus is identical to the Greek word kinos, meaning great sea or river, a reference to the body of water thought to encompass the world. The origins of the word are obscure. and possibly pre-Greek or even Semitic. The term may have been derived from the hypothetical Proto-Indo-European meaning lying on. The Titan was often depicted in a reclining pose that mimicked his literal presence lying across the world. Oceanus embodied the seas and commanded the enormous power of their waters. While he was occasionally viewed as a source of destruction, Oceanus was generally imagined as a father and giver of life. He was also viewed as a liminal deity, one who marked the boundary between the living and the dead, as well as the seas and heavens. Though sometimes imagined as a person, Oceanus was also regarded as a place. In the earliest texts of Greek mythology, the Homeric and Hesiodic epics, Oceanus was a great river, described as world-encircling, perfect, and endlessly flowing back into itself. Since the days of Homer, Oceanus has been seen as the source of all seas, rivers, springs, and wells. He was also closely associated with heavenly bodies. The sun and its corresponding deity Helios, for instance, departed from the Titan's body in the morning and settled there at night. The stars too bathed in Oceanus. Oceanus, either the river itself or the palace of the Titan, was located near the ends of the earth, somewhere in the west, perhaps even in the vicinity of the underworld. Homer puts Oceanus near Elysium, while Hesiod locates him near Tartarus. Beyond Oceanus lies the entrance to the underworld, the Isles of the Blessed, and the Garden of the Hesperides. As Oceanus marked the boundaries of the civilized world, the early Greeks imagined that those who lived near his waters were strange, fantastical beings. These included human or humanesque tribes like the dark Ethiopians, the tiny pygmies, and the Cimmerians, as well as monsters like the Harpies, the Gorgons, or Giraean. Odysseus sailed in Oceanus' great river during his wanderings, which ultimately took him as far east as Zeus's island of Rhea, and as far west as the underworld. Oceanus, together with his sister wife Tethys, was often represented as the primordial source of the world. In the Iliad, for example, Hera says that it is Oceanus from whom the gods are sprung. It is unclear whether this was meant literally as an alternative to the cosmology, in which Gaia and Uranus were the originators of the world, or merely as a kind of figurative epithet. According to the Orphics, a religious group which stressed the importance of asceticism and ritual in attaining a blissful afterlife, Oceanus and Tethys were indeed the first divine couple born a generation before the Titans. Despite his cosmic significance, however, Oceanus remained subordinate to Zeus in traditional Greek religion and myth. In art, Oceanus is often depicted with the features of both a man and a sea creature. He usually has a beard and sometimes sports horns or crab claws growing out of his head, with the body of a snake or fish. He shows up frequently on Roman coins, mosaics, and sarcophagi. Oceanus acquired a reputation as a sort of pacifist among the blustering and belligerent Titans. According to the mythographer Apollodorus, Oceanus was the only Titan who did not participate in Cronus' attack on their father, Uranus. It was through this bloody struggle that the Titans became the rulers of the cosmos, with Cronus as their leader. Later, when Zeus and his siblings fought against Cronus and the Titans in the decade-long Titanomachy, Oceanus again stood on the sidelines. In Hesiod's Theogony, Oceanus actually sends his daughter, Styx, one of the Oceanids, to help Zeus. In Homer's Iliad, Hera claims that during the war, she was taken in and brought up by Oceanus and Tethys. Because of his support of the Olympians, Oceanus was not cast down into Tartarus with the other Titans after Zeus defeated Cronus and his army. Though Oceanus typically kept his distance from mythological adventures, he did appear in one tale with Heracles. The 6th century BC writer Pherecydes related a story in which Heracles sailed to Erythea, the home of the monster Giraeon, in a golden cup given to him by Helios. During this voyage, Oceanus decided to tease Heracles by creating large waves to rock the cup unfazed. Heracles drew his bow and threatened to shoot Oceanus if he did not stop. Knowing Heracles' reputation and thus rightly fearing this threat, Oceanus immediately complied. Another myth explained why Ursa Major, the Great Bear, was the only star or constellation that did not bathe in the waters of Oceanus. Ursa Major had once been one of Zeus' lovers, the nymph Callisto. When she died, she was placed in the sky as a constellation, but the ever-jealous Hera sought to further punish her husband's lover, so she ordered Oceanus not to let Ursa Major bathe with the other stars in his waters. Oceanus was famously memorialized as the focal point of the Trevi Fountain in Rome. Designed in the mid-18th century by the Italian architect Nicola Solvi, and completed in 1760 by sculptor Giuseppe Ponini, the iconic landmark features a bearded Oceanus towering over geysers, horses, and sea nymphs. The fountain's theme is taming the waters, and Oceanus' commanding position makes it clear that the mighty Titan is the one doing the taming. Themis. Themis is the personification and goddess of divine law, will, and justice in Greek mythology. She was held in high esteem by the Olympians, often sitting by Zeus' throne and giving him wise counsel. Themis held the place of oracle at Delphi before passing on her prophetic powers to Apollo. Common epithets of Themis include Gaia, Themis Earth, and Right. Themis was the daughter of Uranus Heaven and Gaia Earth, and the second wife of Zeus. She is often depicted with the sword of justice and scales, symbolizing the law and judgment she gives. Themis became Zeus' second wife, although some sources say she was his first. Her children with Zeus represented the visible order of the world. They included the Horae, the seasons, Earring, peace, as well as Dike, justice, and the three fates, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos. In some sources, such as Aeschylus' tragedy Prometheus Bound, Themis is listed as being Prometheus' mother, although he is more commonly known as being the son of Iapetus and Clymene or Asia. Ancient artists depicted Themis as a mature woman with large eyes and a flowing garment tied at the shoulder. In Greek art, she is often found to be holding the sword of justice and a chain in her right hand, and the scales in her left hand, which symbolize the causes that she judged. Her eyes are sometimes covered to show her impartiality to each individual being judged. As the goddess of divine law, will, and justice, Themis oversaw all the laws that govern both mortals and immortals, often at assemblies that were held by kings who would overhear petitions and make judgments. These laws would often be impervious to any outside or human influences. During the Titanomachy, Themis came down to earth during the Golden Age and taught humans the practice of moderation and good behavior. However, humanity soon forgot her lessons and began acting in sinful and disgraceful ways, so Themis returned to Mount Olympus. As a great goddess, Themis had prophetic powers, which she used to aid both mortals and immortals. Her most famous prophecy was the one relating to the son of the Nereid Tethys. Zeus had intended to marry Tethys until Themis informed him that any son of Tethys would be far greater than his father. Unsurprisingly, Zeus did not want anyone challenging his power, least of all his own son, so he gave up his pursuit of Tethys and instead arranged for her to marry the mortal king Peleus of Thea. Themis was correct. From this marriage came the great Greek hero Achilles, whose legendary feats are still spoken about to this day. In the Greek tragedy Prometheus Bound, Themis made several prophecies which are relayed by Prometheus, her son. The first one has to do with the fall of the Titans. During the Titanomachy, Prometheus told the Titans that they could not overthrow the children of Cronus with strength and brute force alone. According to Themis, the ones who were wise and used their wiles would be the ones to rule. The Titans did not heed this advice, and Themis and Prometheus joined the side of Zeus and the other children of Cronus, who defeated the Titans. Themis also foretold that Prometheus will be rescued from his repetitive punishment by a famous archer, Heracles. Easily one of the most revered Titans, Themis was worshipped at shrines and temples across the Greek world. She was adopted by the Romans as Iapetus, or Justice, and has survived in popular iconography as Lady Justice, a robed, scale-toting defender of righteousness. As the embodiment of justice, order, and custom, Themis was known as a creator of balance and a righter of wrongs. Those who worshipped her prayed for the cosmic forces of justice to bring fairness to their lives and endeavors. She was sometimes also regarded as an oracle. Themis was generally depicted wearing a long robe and veil. Her attributes included scales and the cornucopia, or the sword of justice. Unlike many of the other Titans, Themis was very close with the Olympian gods, especially Zeus. In fact, Themis became Zeus' second wife before he married his sister Hera, and bore him several immortal children. In some traditions, Themis was also one of Zeus' nurses when he was a newborn. On Olympus, Themis was the embodiment of divine order and lived peacefully with the gods. She was even on friendly terms with the temperamental Hera. Ancient authors described how Themis sat beside the throne of Zeus himself. It went like this. There, the savior Themis, seated beside Zeus, the god of hospitality, is honored more than among all other men. For when there is a heavy weight in the balance that sways many ways, to judge with a straight mind and not inopportunely is a difficult struggle. It was Themis, the Greeks believed, who reported sinners to Zeus for punishment, as other ancient writings stated the following. Wicked men never elude pure Themis. Night and day her eyes are on them. And the wide world through above the tribes of men she floats in air, whole pen of Zeus, for punishment of sin. Themis was also said to preside over the assemblies of both gods and men. Themis had a rich and vibrant cult running throughout Greek society. Indeed, she was often seen as the people's goddess, one who helped the poor and defended the meek. Such praise was rare for a Titan. The ancient beings were largely viewed as distant and irrelevant to Greek life. Themis had temples and sanctuaries across the Greek world. At Olympia, Themis had an altar near the important sanctuary of Ge or Gaia, both names for the primordial goddess of the earth. She also had cult sites across the regions of Thessaly, Boeotia, and Attica. Perhaps her most famous temple, which can still be seen today, was located at Rhamnus, a city on the coast of Attica, where she was worshipped together with Nemesis, the embodiment of vengeance. Themis has continued to thrive in popular culture via the symbol of Lady Justice. Robed in a classical chiton and bearing the scales of justice, Lady Justice weighs the deeds of humans and dispenses judgment based on facts and evidence. However, the blindfold, which is often present in modern depictions, was not a characteristic of the ancient Themis. As the embodiment of fairness, Lady Justice is a powerful symbol of Western legal systems, including the American judiciary, and is often depicted in statues and courthouse decor. Most notably, she is seen on the roof of the Old Bailey Crown Courthouse in London, England, the Supreme Court USA, and Bangladesh. Tethys. Tethys, the daughter of Gaia and Uranus, was one of the original 12 Titans of Greek mythology. In later life, she married her brother Oceanus and gave birth to innumerable children, including the Oceanids and all the rivers of the world. Despite reproducing so prolifically, Tethys remained an obscure deity. she was not generally worshipped by the Greeks. The origin of the name Tethys remains elusive. In antiquity, the philosopher Plato suggested a fanciful etymology for the name, seeing it as a compound of the Greek words for strained and filtered. Plato claimed that this was appropriate because Tethys was the goddess of river springs, which are, indeed, strained and filtered. Unsurprisingly, Plato's creative etymology has not been accepted by modern scholars. It is possible that Tethys' name may be connected to the Greek word Tethion, which refers to a sea squirt and is in turn likely related to the Proto-Indo-European word "de", meaning to suck. Other scholars have argued that there is a connection between the Greek Tethys and the Babylonian Tiamat, also a primordial sea goddess. In this case, Tethys was probably originally a Near Eastern goddess who was later imported to Greece. Due to her relationship with Oceanus and the aquatic nature of her many children, Tethys was closely associated with bodies of water. In the early stages of Greek religion, Oceanus and Tethys may have been even more important. In Homer's Iliad, for example, Hera calls Tethys mother and says that it is Oceanus from whom the gods are sprung. These words may have been merely figurative, or they may have represented an alternative cosmology in which Tethys and Oceanus, not Gaia and Uranus, were the originators of the world. According to the Orphics, a religious group that stressed the importance of asceticism and ritual in attaining a blissful afterlife, Oceanus and Tethys were indeed the first divine couple born a generation before the Titans. In traditional Greek religion, however, they were subordinate to Zeus and the Olympians. In the few sources that mention her, Tethys is consistently portrayed as a maternal figure. In art, she was usually depicted together with her husband Oceanus or other gods, often with small wings growing out of her head. A daughter of the primordial deities Gaia and Uranus, Tethys was one of 12 Titans, the others being Coeus, Crius, Cronus, Hyperion, Iapetus, Thea, Rhea, Themis, Mnemosyne, Phoebe and Oceanus. Tethys' siblings also included the horrific one-eyed Cyclops and the equally detested Hecatonchires monsters with 100 hands each. Tethys took her brother Oceanus as her husband. Together, they gave birth to the rivers of the world as well as the 3,000 nymphs known collectively as the Oceanids. Their children were thus too numerous to be named. Tethys is briefly mentioned in Hesiod's 8th century Theogony, an epic describing the divine order of the cosmos as the Greeks understood it. Hesiod introduces Tethys as a child of Gaia and Uranus, and later elaborates on her relationship with Oceanus and their copious offspring. For reasons that are unclear, Tethys and Oceanus sided with the Olympians during the Titanomachy, a 10-year conflict between the gods and the Titans. In Homer's Iliad, Zeus' wife Hera even claims that Tethys was her foster mother when she was young. In Hera's words, Oceanus and Tethys lovingly nursed and cherished me in their halls, when they had taken me from Rhea, what time Zeus, whose voice is borne afar, thrust Cronus down to dwell beneath the earth and the unresting sea. Tethys was also sometimes mentioned in connection with Callisto, a lover of Zeus who was transformed into a bear. When Callisto died, she underwent yet another transformation, this time becoming the constellation Ursa Major, the Great Bear. All the other stars, it was said, bathed in the waters of Oceanus as they cycled through the heavens, all except Ursa Major. This was because Hera hated Callisto for having had an affair with her husband Zeus. She therefore asked either Tethys or Oceanus, there are different versions, to forbid Ursa Major from bathing in the waters of Oceanus with the other stars as they dipped beneath the horizon, whereas Ursa Major is cursed to circle in the sky and never dips beneath the horizon. Tethys, or Saturn III, is a mid-sized moon of Saturn about 1,060 kilometers across. It was discovered by G. de Cassini in 1684 and is named after the Titan Tethys of Greek mythology. Thea. As a daughter of Uranus and Gaia, Thea belonged to the first generation of Greek Titans. Together with her brother-husband Hyperion, she gave birth to the sun god Helios, the moon goddess Selene, and the dawn goddess Eos. Thea herself was also regarded as a goddess of light. The name Thea, alternatively spelled Thea or Thea, simply means goddess or divine, and is linguistically related to the ancient Greek word theas, god or goddess. This word is also the root of modern English terms, such as theism and theology. An alternative name for Thea, which only appears in Homeric hymn 31, is Euryphessa, translate Euryphessa, meaning wide shining. She may also have been known as Aethra. The Roman mythographer Hyginus, for example, used the name Aethra to refer to the wife of Hyperion and the mother of the sun, moon, and dawn. Thea appears to have been associated with heavenly bodies and other forms of light, an association that was supported by her identity as the mother of Helios, the sun, Selene the moon, and Eos, the dawn. The 5th century BCE poet Pindar further connected Thea with the light that shines off of gold, as well as with athletic competitions. And it went like this. Mother of the sun, Thea of many names, for your sake men honor gold as more powerful than anything else, and through the value you bestow on them, O queen, ships contending on the sea and yoked. Teams of horses in swift whirling contests become marvels, and in athletic contests, someone who has wreathed his hair with many garlands has achieved length of fame, when he has been victorious with his hands, or with the swiftness of his feet. Thea was a daughter of the primordial deities Gaia, who embodied the earth, and Uranus, who personified the heavens. Among her brothers and sisters were the other Titans, Coeus, Crius, Cronus, Hyperion, Iapetus, Oceanus, Mnemosyne, Phoebe, Tethys, Themis, and Rhea, as well as the Hecatonchires and the Cyclops, destructive monsters who terrorized gods and mortals alike. Thea appears only a few times in ancient Greek literature, and even then only in connection with her children. Hesiod, for example, describes her solely in relation to her lover and offspring, and Thea was subject in love to Hyperion and bare great Helios the sun, and clear Selene the moon, and Eos the dawn, who shines upon all that are on earth and upon the deathless gods who live in the wide heaven. Homeric hymn 31, which is dedicated to Helios, elaborates slightly on the unsung Thea, piling epithets on her and even renaming her Euryphessa. And now, O Muse Calliope, daughter of Zeus, begin to sing of glowing Helios, whom mild-eyed Euryphessa, the far-shining one, bare to the son of earth and starry heaven. For Hyperion wedded glorious Euryphessa, his own sister, who bare him lovely children, rosy-armed Eos and rich-tressed Selene, and tireless Helios, who is like the deathless gods. Aside from these and a handful of other scattered references, little was said about Thea in antiquity. Though not commonly depicted in popular culture, Thea appears in the 7th episode of the television series Xena, Warrior Princess, where she is awakened from a centuries-long slumber alongside Crius and Hyperion. The ancient Greeks believed the eyes emitted a beam of invisible light, much like a lamp, which allowed one to see whatever it touched. Hence Thea, mother of sight. Thea was also the mother of the light-beaming sun, moon, and dawn. Thea was apparently a female aspect of the primordial deity Aether, the shining ether of the blue sky. In this role, she is fittingly described as a daughter of heaven. Thea was also an oracular goddess whose name is connected with the word Tiaza, to divine or prophecy. The Homeric hymn to Delian Apollo seems to equate her with Ichne, the tracing goddess, who possessed an oracular shrine at Ignae in Theotis. Thea's sister Titans were also oracular goddesses. Phoebe held Delphoi, Mnemosyne, Lebedea, Dione, Dodona, and Themis presided over all the oracles. Phoebe. One of the original 12 Titans of Greek mythology, Phoebe was the daughter of the primordial deities Gaia and Uranus. She married her brother Coeus, and together they had two daughters, Asteria and Leto. Through Leto, Phoebe was the grandmother of Apollo and Artemis, powerful gods of the Olympian pantheon. The name Phoebe was derived from the ancient Greek adjective phobos, meaning bright or shining. This name was also applied to Phoebe's grandson Apollo, who was commonly referred to as Apollo. Phoebus, or shining Apollo, however, the ultimate etymology of the Greek phobos, and thus also of Phoebe's name, remains uncertain. In the Theogony, Hesiod refers to Phoebe with the epithet Chrysostephanos, meaning golden crowned. Phoebe's precise attributes remain unclear, but her name, the Bright One, suggests some association with light. She was also connected with oracles, both through her grandson Apollo as well as in her own right. The daughter of Gaia, mother of the earth, and Uranus, father of the heavens, Phoebe was part of a brood of titans that included Coeus, Crius, Hyperion, Rhea, Oceanus, Iapetus, Thea, Themis, Mnemosyne, Tethys, and Cronus. Phoebe's other siblings were the one-eyed monsters known as the Cyclops and the Hecatonchires, horrible creatures said to have 100 hands each. Like many titans, Phoebe seldom appeared in Greek texts. Her role in the Titanomachy and its aftermath, for example, is unsung and unknown. Hesiod's Theogony, the most complete source for Greek myth on the origins of the cosmos, mentions her only twice. She first appears in the list of the children of Gaia and Uranus. Her second appearance comes soon after, when Hesiod describes her marriage to her brother Coeus, which went as follows. Again, Phoebe came to the desired embrace of Coeus. Then the goddess, through the love of the god, conceived and brought forth dark-gowned Leto, always mild, kind to men and to the deathless gods, mild from the beginning, gentlest in all Olympus. Also she bare Asteria of happy name, whom Perseus once led to his great house to be called his dear wife. This fresco, recovered from a wall in Herculaneum, depicts Phoebe on the right attempting to console her daughter Leto. The work is attributed to Alexander of Athens, an artist who remains shrouded in mystery, and is held in the National Archaeological Museum, Naples, Italy. Phoebe's sparse mythos overlaps with that of her more important grandson, Apollo. In some traditions, Phoebe was the third guardian of the oracle at Delphi, after her mother Gaia and her sister Themis, and it was Phoebe who presented Delphi to Apollo as a birthday gift. Subsequently, Apollo added his grandmother's name to his own, becoming Apollo Phoebus. Phoebe's influence continues to resonate in popular culture thanks to the many people, both real and fictional, named after her. Commonly used in Greek and Latin, her name has remained popular in languages descended from them. Phoebe's name appears on the southeast corner of the Pergamon altar, which depicts the Gigantomachy fighting against a giant with animal features, similar to the one her daughter Leto is fighting. Phoebe, wearing a diadem and a very creased dress, is seen wielding a flaming torch and fighting next to her other daughter Asteria. Phoebe, one of the moons of Saturn, is named after this goddess, as sister of Cronus, Saturn's Greek equivalent. Phoebe, also spelled Phoebe, is also a popular feminine given name in the English-speaking world. Mnemosyne. Mnemosyne, whose name translates to memory, was one of the original Greek titans born to Gaia and Uranus, an inspirational deity. Mnemosyne controlled all forms of speech and rhetoric. Kings, poets, and philosophers would call upon her whenever they wished to craft powerful and persuasive oratory. Like her sister Themis, Mnemosyne did not rebel against Zeus and the Olympians during the Titanomachy, the decade-long war between the gods and the Titans. In fact, she eventually became one of Zeus' many consorts, and together they bore the 9 Muses. In ancient Greece, Mnemosyne was worshipped alongside the Muses. She was also celebrated in the cult of Asclepius, a son of Apollo, who was considered the divine source of the medicinal arts. Such recognition was rare for a Titan. Most never became objects of worship. The name Mnemosyne is related to the ancient Greek noun mem, meaning memory or remembrance, as well as to the verb mnemsk, meaning to remember. This etymology is likely connected to the Indo-European word ne, to mention, and possibly to men, to remember. The various dialects of ancient Greek presented several variations on Mnemosyne's name, including Mnemosyne and Mnemona. The Greek deity, who personified memory, was usually considered to be the same figure as Mnemosyne. A goddess of memory and inspiration, Mnemosyne was called upon in speeches, memorials, and any form of art that sought to preserve memories. In the Iliad and the Odyssey, for example, she is invoked whenever a speaker seeks to heighten their rhetorical abilities. Through her children, the Muses, Mnemosyne was associated with all the disciplines used to record and preserve knowledge, including history, poetry, and philosophy. Mnemosyne was a child of the primordial deities Gaia and Uranus. Her siblings included the other Titans Oceanus, Coeus, Crius, Cronus, Hyperion, Iapetus, Themis, Thea, Rhea, also Phoebe, and Tethys, as well as the destructive and terrifying Cyclops and Hecatonchires. In Hesiod's Theogony, Mnemosyne is first mentioned as a daughter of Gaia and Uranus. However, the text devotes far more attention to her courtship with Zeus and their resulting daughters, the Muses. According to Hesiod, Zeus, possibly in the form of a shepherd, sought out Mnemosyne with her beautiful hair and seduced her. Which reads as follows: "For 9 nights did wise Zeus lie with her, entering her holy bed remote from the immortals. And when a year was past and the seasons came round as the months waned, and many days were accomplished, she bare 9 daughters, all of one mind, whose hearts are set upon song and their spirit, free from care, a little way from the topmost peak of snowy Olympus." Lengthy passages praising Mnemosyne's daughters were common in antiquity. The writers of the ancient world loved to celebrate the Muses as the source of their craft. Unlike most of her Titan brethren, Mnemosyne was worshipped widely throughout the Greek world, often alongside her daughters, the Muses. Important sites of worship included Athens, Mount Cithaeron in Boeotia, Mount Helicon, and a spring near the river Hercynum. She also seems to have been worshipped together with the healer god Asclepius and the Boeotian hero Trophonius. Mnemosyne has appeared in several modern interpretations of Greek myth. In an episode of the television series Xena, warrior princess entitled Forget Me Not, the character Gabrielle visits Mnemosyne's shrine, hoping to forget the tragedies that have befallen her. Mnemosyne also features in an episode of Hercules, The Legendary Journeys. In this case, however, she is presented inaccurately as a daughter of Cronus who detests Zeus. Due to her association with memory, Mnemosyne's name often appears in connection with memory aids. For example, Mnemosyne is the name of a software manufacturer that produces flashcard programs for children's learning. In English, the term mnemonic is commonly used to describe teaching strategies or devices that facilitate memorization. The mnemonic Roigbiv, for instance, helps learners memorize the colors of the rainbow. Mnemosyne was a moon of Saturn, the 6th planet of the solar system. The archive formed its interior. In the real world, Mnemosyne, full name 57 Mnemosyne, is actually a large asteroid in the asteroid belt, rather than a moon. Rhea. Rhea, the daughter of Gaia and Uranus, was a Greek titan and the mother of the Olympians. Along with the other titans, Rhea was imprisoned in Tartarus by her tyrannical father. She was eventually liberated by her brother Cronus, whom she married. Rhea gave birth to the Olympian deities and through her cunning, helped them overthrow Cronus and establish a new cosmic order. Hailed as Mother of the Gods, Rhea was revered across the Hellenic world. She was especially popular on the island of Crete, where the infant Zeus was said to have come of age. Rhea was also held in high regard by the Orphics, who believed that she had conceived the goddess Persephone with her son Zeus. In art and literature, she was often conflated with Cybele, an Anatolian mother goddess whose cult was imported to the Greek world in the 4th century BCE. A standard folk etymology of the name Rhea or Rhea, and the one endorsed by Plato in Cratylus, claimed that Rhea was a feminine form of the ancient Greek verb rhea, meaning to flow, discharge, or stream. Modern scholars have also suggested possible connections with the Greek words Rhea or Rhea easily, Era earth, and Oros mountain. Alternatively, Rhea's name may be Semitic in origin, with possible connections to the root meaning friend. Many of Rhea's epithets and cult titles related to her maternal role, including Meta, meaning mother, Metatheon, mother of the gods, Metamegaly, great mother, and Meta-Ori, mountain mother. Other epithets, such as Dindymen-Cypelin and Idaea, linked Rhea to sites that were sacred to her. There were several alternate forms of Rhea's name in the ancient world, including Rhea, Rhe, and Rai. She was also frequently identified with the goddesses Cybele or Cybele, Actistis, and Metatheon, mother of the gods, while the Romans called her Ops. Rhea was a mother goddess, beloved for her nurturing compassion. From relatively early on, she was closely identified with the Phrygian mother goddess Cybele. As a result, the attributes of the two goddesses became largely indistinguishable for most of Greek and Roman history. Rhea and Cybele were regarded as one and the same. Like Cybele, Rhea was generally represented as wearing a tall crown or veil, and seated on a throne. Also like Cybele, Rhea held lions as sacred. She was often shown with lions sitting beside her throne, or even riding a chariot pulled by lions. In Greece, the oak tree was also sacred to Rhea. The Triumph of Cybele, painted by Pinturicchio in 1509, depicted as Cybele. Rhea is shown in a cart pulled by a pair of lions, and is held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, USA. At the heart of Rhea's or Cybele's retinue were the Curetes of Corybantes, ecstatic priests who worshipped her with tambourines, cymbals, and drums. As Cybele, Rhea was also associated with Attis, an ill-fated youth sometimes represented as her consort, and the hermaphroditic Actistis. Rhea was the daughter of Gaia, the primordial goddess of the earth, and Uranus, the primordial god of the skies. Their union brought forth not only Rhea, but the other titans as well: Oceanus, Coeus, Crius, Hyperion, Iapetus, Thea, Themis, Mnemosyne, Phoebe, Tethys, and Cronus. Rhea's other siblings included the Cyclops Brontes, Arges, and Steropes, and the Hecatonchires, Cottos, Briareos, and Gyges. Rhea married her younger brother Cronus, and together they had 6 children: Demeter, Hades, Hera, Hestia, Poseidon, and Zeus. By way of her children's extensive sexual liaisons, Rhea was grandmother to a significant portion of the Greek pantheon, including Ares, Hephaestus, Athena, Artemis, Apollo, Hermes, and Dionysus. According to Hesiod's Theogony, the 8th century BC epic explaining the origins of the gods and the Greek cosmic order, Rhea was the daughter of Gaia Earth and Uranus Heaven. She was one of the deities known as the Titans. But Uranus, the father of the Titans, was a mean and jealous god who imprisoned his children in the dim bowels of Tartarus so they could not usurp his dominion. Uranus' fears, as it turned out, were well-founded. Cronus, the youngest of the Titans, eventually overthrew his father with the help of Gaia, severing the genitalia of the sky god and casting them into the sea. Cronus then became ruler not only of the Titans, but of the whole cosmos. Part of the Pergamum altar, this frieze shows Rhea, whose face has been obliterated, riding a lion. Constructed in the early 2nd century BCE at the direction of Eumenes II of Pergamum, in Asia Minor in modern Turkey, and is held in the Pergamum Museum, Berlin, Germany. Cronus married his sister Rhea, and together they had many children. But the fears that had haunted his father also troubled Cronus. He became suspicious of his children and decided to swallow each of them as they emerged from the womb to prevent any rebellion. Hesiod writes that, when Rhea gave birth to Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, the great Cronus swallowed as each came forth from the womb to his mother's knees with this intent, that no other of the proud sons of heaven should hold the kingly office amongst the deathless gods. For he learned from earth and starry heaven that he was destined to be overcome by his own son, strong though he was, through the contriving of great Zeus. Therefore he kept no blind outlook, but watched and swallowed down his children, and unceasing grief seized Rhea. Upon conceiving her 6th child Zeus, Rhea hatched a scheme to spare the baby from Cronus' jaws, and thereby save the others as well. When the agonies of childbirth seized her, Rhea sped towards Crete in the company of her mother, Gaia. Shortly after Zeus was born, Gaia whisked him to safety and raised him with all the care Mother Earth could provide. To complete her deception, Rhea offered Cronus a rock wrapped in the swaddling clothes of a newborn. In time, Zeus matured to manhood and fulfilled his destiny, overthrowing Cronus and establishing a new world order on Mount Olympus. The bulk of Rhea's mythos involves her role as mother and savior of the Olympian gods. However, there were a handful of other myths about her. In another myth, Rhea found her husband Cronus being unfaithful to her with Philyra, one of the Oceanids. Caught red-handed, Cronus transformed himself into a horse and galloped away. Philyra, meanwhile, became the mother of the centaur Chiron. Rhea also played a role in the myths of the Olympians and is featured in 2 of the Homeric hymns. According to the 2nd Homeric hymn to Demeter, it was Rhea who persuaded the heartbroken Demeter to rejoin the company of the gods after her daughter Persephone was kidnapped by Hades. In the 3rd Homeric hymn to Apollo, Rhea is among the divine midwives of Leto when she gives birth to Apollo. Finally, there were some traditions in which Rhea was the one who taught Dionysus the rituals of his cult. Rhea was worshipped widely throughout the ancient world under a variety of names. There was an ancient temple of Rhea in the city of Knossos on Crete. Another early temple to the Titan, called the Metrum, was nestled in the courtyard of the giant temple of Olympian Zeus in Athens. As Cybele, Rhea was worshipped throughout Asia, particularly in Asia Minor. She had major cults on Mount Sipylus, Mount Codinus, and across the region of Phrygia, in what is now the northwestern coast of Turkey. There, Cybele had temples in the cities of Dindyma and Pessinus, where she was called Agdistis. It was said that the sacred image of Cybele, Agdistis, Rhea at Pessinus, had fallen from heaven. While references to Rhea are rare in popular culture, her name has appeared in a few non-mythical contexts. For example, the 5th moon orbiting the planet Saturn was named for her, a fitting choice, as Saturn itself was named after her father's Roman analogue. First discovered by Italian astronomer Giovanni Domenico Cassini in 1672, The moon was initially called Saturn V and dedicated to King Louis XIV, Cassini's French patron. The English astronomer John Herschel renamed it Rhea in 1847, ostensibly in order to maintain consistency with other planets bearing the names of Greek and Roman deities. Rhea was also used to name a species of Ratita group of large, long-legged, and flightless birds native to South America and distantly related to both the emu and ostrich. Why the Titan's name was bestowed upon this bird remains a mystery. Thanks for watching mythology. Please remember to like, share and subscribe, and hit that notification bell for upcoming videos.